does consumer marketing and product marketing manager. He is an alumnus of the Wharton Business School and IIT Delhi. Mr. Apoorva Pandey is AVP, User Growth and Marketing at Zomato and Breaker. He is a group and marketing leader with 9+ years of experience in growing and scaling brands from 0 to 1 to IPO in e-commerce, quick commerce, and food tech industry in India and Southeast Asia. Happy birthday, sir.
Thank you so much for having us at MEFDH. Excited to be here. So just I think maybe this for neither Apoorva nor I are at Zomato anymore. We've got other writers, but I think we have was a lot, and that we do very apt and we'd be very interested to session. That's great. It's just a bit of like taste of fun, better. So what then? Yeah, the we attached the picture. You cover it. Put your deed in out. Okay, so we start off with a little game. So I read out the number of marketing tools, and so okay. Ready to roll. All right, so we play this game. I'll read out certain marketing truths, and if you think if you think the statement that I read is true, I just want you to put up your hand, okay, and just keep it up there till I tell you to drop it. Differentiating a brand is a vital marketing task. Who thinks this is true? Okay, great. Keep stay there. Loyalty metrics reflect the strength and not the size of a brand. Okay. Customer retention is cheaper than acquisition. Okay. Price promotions boost penetration, not loyalty. Okay. Who a brand competes with depends on the positioning of the brand's image. Okay. Mass marketing is no longer competitive. Buyers have a special reason to buy a brand. The consumers of a particular brand are distinctive type of people. The heaviest 20% of a brand's customers deliver 80% of its sales. Okay. Is there anyone who didn't put up their hand at all? Okay. No one wins the jackpot. So I was blown away as well when I first encountered this piece of wisdom. But the reality, and I'll talk more about it, is that all these statements are false, each one of them. Okay. I think, when a lot of us, when, we grew up and we were taught marketing at various institutions we attended, it was still very much the old Kotlerian view of marketing, right? Philip Kotler, the first generation of marketing gurus, who came up with very logical assertions like these, right? Which, seem correct. But they did not perhaps have the luxury of the kind of data that exists that the next generation of marketing gurus, who actually call themselves marketing scientists, have used. There are 7 of them out there, but the leading institute of marketing science is actually an institute called the Ehrenberg Bass Institute in Adelaide in the University of Southern Australia. And their leader is a gentleman called Byron Sharp. If there's one and only one investment you could make in learning growth and marketing, I'd buy his book, How Brands Grow. In fact, you should, best investment of the next 30 seconds is, take out your phone, choose your poison between Amazon and Flipkart and just buy it. And no, I'm not an influencer paid by him, but honestly, I think this is the best piece of knowledge I have read on the subject, and I wanted to share it with you. So what the Arnav Bass Institute did was they looked at real data, right? Marketing spend, sales across multiple product categories, multiple brands in each category, multiple countries, and over multiple decades. And they use this to come up with what they call the empirical laws of marketing and growth. So I think I'm not going to go through all of this because I think we were pre-told few slides, quick, and tons of AMA. So we'll stick to that promise. But maybe I'll just call out 2 or 3 things. I think the first big aha here, and definitely was for me when I first encountered this, is if you look at how brands, great brands have grown, over the decades across countries and categories. They've grown by acquiring new users, right? And not retaining users. Brands that have grown have, stepped on the pedal of new user acquisition. Brands that have declined, perhaps focus more on retention and, put their foot off that pedal. So that's one, big insight that kind of comes from this. And the other big, aha, I had, or, Apoorva and I, we've had over, as we've studied these deeply and actually seen some of these, play out, is the buyers of a brand are not, very different type of people or have very different personalities from that of a competing brand, right? And typically, buyers have a repertoire of brands, but, within that repertoire, they're not very loyal, okay? That's what the data has sort of pointed to over time in categories. And essentially what that means, for folks like, us in the room, looking to reach out to users is, it's actually prudent to go after, the entire category, right? Because, there aren't really niches. The other very interesting piece is the double jeopardy law, which basically says that loyalty is a function of reach or penetration. So again, which sort of corollary to what I said around, it's new user acquisition and not retention that will drive growth. Basically, what's seen is that brands that have more users, their users tend to be slightly more loyal on average than the users of brands who have less users. And, several reasons for that, but, maybe that's where I'll keep the suspense and let you read the book. For the math geeks like me, a lot of these laws are actually, are proven using the Dirichlet non-binomial distribution probability model, and follow nicely from there. I'll pause here. So the other now coming to driving growth, right? User growth, revenue growth, driving sales. Brands, again, studying brands, right? That have brands and products that have grown really well over time, categories, countries. A learning is that 2 things have to happen to kind of drive this growth. One is brands' physical availability has to be maximized, and I'll talk about what that is. The other is brands' mental availability has to be maximized. In an FMCG context, or a physical product, physical availability is just being present everywhere the user goes, right? So if the user's online, being there online. If the user walks into a supermarket, being there. If the user goes to a kirana, being there. And being there, across like the country or, countries as your target market is. In the world, in the digital world, in the world of apps, physical availability, takes 2 forms. One is actually having the app on your phone. So, the traditional app download kind of campaign. And 2, being present when users search, right? So being there in front of search results, whether it's on Google, whether it's on YouTube, whether it's on Amazon as relevant. And so this is physical availability, right? And broadly like the world of performance marketing, which Apoorva will just talk more about in a second. And the second thing that has to come together for the perfect storm of driving growth for a brand or product is what's called mental availability. What is mental availability? I know this is not very readable, but I'll talk you through it. You don't have to read the small text. So the mental availability is essentially linking your brand or product to category entry points. Okay, so think of category entry point as any trigger for using the brand or product, right? So it could be why, when, where, with whom, with what your product could be used, right? Or other competing products in that category could be used. And the form of advertising that has been found to drive, have the best sort of direct correlation, or if not direct, but a reasonable correlation to sales and growth, is advertising that actually builds these memory structures in the minds of your users. Essentially owning category entry points. And what's seen is that, the brands that do well own more category entry points than brands who don't in the minds of their users, and own them more strongly through, great creative advertising. So I'll pause here. I think, that was some of the theory. I'll hand over to Apoorv to talk you through some of the best practices of brand and performance advertising that, we had the pleasure and privilege to practice together live at Zomato, and we've done elsewhere over the course of our life. Maybe one last plug. I think so How Brands Grow is a theory, a very cool book which actually shows how Unilever India has actually put these principles into practice, and they actually quote Byron Sharp. Is a book by Unilever exec Sudhir Sitapati called The CEO Factory. Right, so if reading both of those will give you both like the theory and practice of this, particularly in the Indian market.
Thank you, Varun. Thank you so much. So I think the next section I would want it to be a little more interactive, so that we get the maximum of the presentation. How many of the brands, like all companies that are sitting, how many of you value performance marketing or are doing performance marketing at the moment? Like your team is sitting out there doing performance marketing.
But these are two separate ways of quite a learning and second doing it. But so I think exactly we take the first one and then the second one.
So then let's take doing it first, right? Are you running performance marketing at the moment?
Not really. Me? Yeah, please. I know. I was doing it since the last year, but in FY20, that year closing, we stopped it because specifically in ethics space, there was some learning that came out. But now we are not focusing much on performance marketing. So I see value, but I think from an ethics perspective, especially we are in higher education, we have a due perspective here.
Understood. So you were doing, but you have stopped. Is it Ed? Yeah. Is there anyone in the room who's still in performance marketing? Right? What kind of value do you see in performance marketing?
Access to a much larger pool of people that we would be able to organically. Definitely as a smaller company that's very that is the marketing with more TVS obviously, but that's stuff that we can't afford. Long marketing gets you a lot of control with very small budget and very fine targeting. You can very easily quantify what the return of your marketing is. So those are a few reasons that we do it. Also, this barrier to it.
Nice. So I'm picking out two words: access to a lot of people and control. I think so. These are the two keywords that I would also want to attach to performance marketing, right? What's the output? Like, are you seeing effectiveness, efficiencies? Are you seeing your brand grow with just performance marketing at the moment?
From a brand perspective, I don't think so. We see sales, we will hit down, we see sales. I don't think so much of brand growth.
Amazing. So this is please. Yeah, you want to tell the please.
It started, we stopped, and we started again. But we started again for a different reason. And it's actually very interesting that we started by actually building communities. So it's actually we not first, and it's not to sale. Because we started with sales for lead gen because we were doing B2C. Then we pivoted, we went B2B. And with B2B, what we realized, my target audience is a lot of being the directors of campuses and epic founders. So we are actually using performance marketing to get that to be part of communities where we could do knowledge sharing. Because otherwise, how do we socialize that the communities actually have the knowledge sharing was taking place? So it's provided me and my team great strength in terms of building communities. So we actually, we realized the community funnel is probably the more powerful sales funnel. Because we are also sending and doing acquisition for a lot of universities. So it's working till now, and I'll see how it works going into the future. It's a very different way.
Super. Glad to know it is working for you.
But I have a question before.
Sure.
I would like to understand from the beginning.
Yeah.
What we do. So I would like to understand from Dubai, since we have been working with so many big brands, that what exactly, and I think my Asian brands sound a bit very novish, but what exactly performance marketing covers? Is it just putting money on paid ads, or it is about PPC, paid per play, praise or maybe there are other numbers also that comes into the bit. If, for example, there's a market is spent that I have to what all is under the umbrella of performance marketing. I think that will also give us an idea.
I think so. That's one of the greatest mysteries of life. I'm just kidding. So, see, how we look at performance marketing, and Varun, you can add on, to that, is if you're just doing performance marketing, you're buying revenues, right? It's an exchange for an exchange. You're buying people, you're buying revenues by just doing performance marketing, right? And that is where the brand angles also comes into the picture. So one of the common, misconceptions that we all, have is that performance marketing is very different, brand is very different. It's not, right? Yes, there is a difference, and there is a very big fundamental difference, but the mechanics that go behind it, you'll be running the same creatives, right? Probably you might have a different version of the creative, right? It's not very different, but where the difference is in terms of reach, right? How we see, if you're just doing performance marketing, right? The opportunities for your brand are lesser because you're reaching lesser amount of people. So, I mean, you would have heard these terms, right? Reach and frequency, right? Reach and frequency. These are the two building blocks of advertising, right? Everybody, performance marketing goes more towards frequency. Brand marketing goes more towards reach, right? If you're just doing performance marketing, you're not reaching a lot of people. You're building higher frequencies on a smaller cohort of people, which will in turn convert, for your business. But if you're doing brand, right? That is where you're reaching people by wildfire, right? Obviously, the frequencies will be lesser, right? But the more people you reach in the initial journey, from a 0 to 1 or 1 to 10, a point of view, the more opportunities it creates for your future sales, for your future interactions with the brands, right? I will get to what all is performance marketing. That's a very deep question. There's a lot of stuff in performance marketing. We'll touch the basics, like the tip of the iceberg. We can get into a more deeper discussion about, what all is there. But, we'll get to that. Varun, do you want to add something to that?
Yeah, I think the one thing that
I'd add is going back to like physical availability and mental availability, right? To the scientific proven drivers of growth. So the performance marketing, like Apoorva said, right, can have many shades, but I think the two, to keep top of mind are like having the app on the user's phone and being there when someone does a search. Right? Those are the two that will build physical availability for your products. Yeah. See, I'll come back to my point of, if you're just doing performance marketing, you're buying revenues, you're buying users, right? Let us look at these complicated graphs, right? We'll just simplify it in a moment. Let us look at this graph, right? Y-axis is sales uplift, right? X-axis is time, the time your business is running, right? Let's imagine this is day 0 and you have started your marketing activities today. There are two brands, brand A and brand B. Brand A just doing performance marketing, brand B doing brand plus performance marketing, right? Yes, I started performance marketing, brand A. I will see results from day 2, probably day 1, right? From the next hour, I will see, the people are installing my app, right? People are, doing the first purchase, right? And so on and so forth, right? But these, after a point of time, these become artificial because that is where the yellow line is. If you look at the average, right, you will get peaks at a point of time, but the moving average will be the same. The moment you shut down performance marketing, everything falls. The business shatters, right? It does not build a long, sustainable business for you. right? Obviously, you'll get some retained users, but the top of the funnel acquisition just goes down. And as Varun said, that new users are the most important building blocks for a snowballing business, a compounding business. Now, these two terms we usually take. I'll come back to that, right? How do you snowball your business or compound your business? New users are the game changers there. Through performance marketing, it is the time that you're active. You'll be buying people, you'll be buying revenues, right? After the point of time, once you shut it down, it'll all go to waste, right? It fails to build a long-term yielding value for the business. Now, that's brand A. Coming to the brand B, right? Which is where these both graphs come into the picture. With time, and this is in the corporate world, we keep on using these terms: snowballing, let our business snowball, and compounding, which is we have taken from the finance world. How does our business compound over time, right? Is where you balance both branding as well as performance marketing. Branding reaches out to a lot of people. There is a lot of emotional priming that a brand can have with very good creators, very good storytelling via branding. See, something that if I ask you what was the last advertisement that you would have seen, probably you will not be able to answer. But you'll be able to answer something from the past that would have hit you. You'll be able to remember the story, you'll be able to remember the brand, and that will have a long-lasting impact, right, in your mind, where the mental availability factor comes in, right? So, with time, performance marketing brand A will see a growth, but that will be a very saturated growth, right? And that is the point, where now I'm using some technical terms, right? That is a point of time where you will see after a point cannibalization happens. Your paid advertising starts eating into organic, right? And the overall top line does not increase, right? And this happens with all the brands, right? Everybody burns their hands and they get to learn, after that. But if you start brand right from the beginning, you're building more opportunities for any of you're reaching out to more people, telling better stories, right? So whenever there's a need for the brand, right, a user will remember that story, will get converted to your brand. And this is the graph that you would see, right, for a brand that is doing both performance and brand, rather than just performance. Does that make sense, or can you relate to that?
And maybe one more thing. So, there's a very interesting story about this ad agency exec. I forget who he was, but maybe that's not super important into the story. So this gentleman, after a very super successful career in the ad industry, retires, and one of his mentees is sort of going to take him out to dinner, and so this gentleman tells him, I just bought this new fancy Aston Martin, right, as my retirement gift. And he said, oh, Ring, what made you buy it? And he says, but of course I saw an ad. And he was like, but I don't know of late remember seeing an ad for this car. He's like, yeah, I saw it when I was a kid. Right? So the reality is that because performance marketing is so easy to measure and potentially attribute, I think we tend to over attribute the benefits of performance marketing and under attribute the benefits of brand marketing. So it's something to bear in mind.
Yeah. So we're not saying performance marketing is not important. Yes, it is important. Yes, it is necessary. In today's world, to succeed, it is necessary. But there's a different lens that we have to look at performance marketing. It is not the sole thing that will grow your brand. Before we jump into performance marketing, let us think about how do you think, you should think about brand in terms of planning, in terms of investments. Yes, there's an entire creative strategy. There's a lot of things go behind, just making one single, piece of, good visual for your brand which story tells. But from an advertising perspective, from where the money goes to, your different Googles and Facebooks and Monocos of the world, right? So this is where, I wanted to showcase you a journey about how to think about performance marketing. Now, let's say, again, coming to the brand B, which is doing, brand performance marketing, and they're only live in Delhi at the moment, right? So think about the census population of Delhi, right? Let's say 30 million, right? Now think about the internet population, right? Because that is where, if there's an internet population, that becomes like your superset of audiences that, someday, will reach to your brand. Let's say that is 18 million. Now, the entire 18 million will not be will not be your audiences, because they will have different age groups, They will, so some would be a parent already, some would not be learning already, some would be, between 13 to 18 age group and so on and so forth, right? So you have to figure out the right affinity and TG segments for your brand, right? Instead of just putting money on, on the internet and hoping that, the audiences will come to me. Let's say if you put all those cuts, and these cuts are very much available in the most advanced platforms of the world that you're already advertising. From 18 million, it shrinks down to 12 million. Now, typically, this is where the limitations of a digital ecosystem comes in, right? You will only be able to reach 60 to 70% of these people, right? Because there are multiple factors that come into digital advertising. There is high auction pressure, right? You might not be bidding the right amount. That person might not be available once you're showing the ad. So typically, on a general rule of thumb, it is 60 to 70% that you reach out, in terms of the actual reach, which shrinks down to 8.5 million. And if you look at the reach and frequency curves, like instead of planning for the entire 18 to 12 million, you reach down to 8.5 million and bang on with the frequency to these people, right? With a very good creative. And this is where the impact of brand also happens, right? Instead of just going 18 million one frequency, right? Go to an 8.5 million with a 4 frequency, right? And that is where impactful stuff happens, right? We just made a general playbook for you that you can take away from from these slides, is how to plan for a brand campaign basis on the planned reach that you want to do and your objective, like what kind of MAUs do you want to have, right? For example, a 3 to 5 million base, right, in a very small geography, or to 100 million plus, right, which is a very high reach, high scale brand or very evolved brand, right? How to think about audience segments, frequency cuts, right? Split of creative in terms of Trojan bumpers. Now, these might get a little technical, right? But this is definitely more valuable if you pass it to your marketing and, branding teams. And how to think about, number of creators. So this is something that we can give away, by the end of the session. Now, coming to performance marketing, right? Once the branding engine starts working, right, in terms of reaching more people, right? See, this is all, it's an engine. Digital advertising is an engine of its own. There are 100 people, you reached out to 60 people, right? Performance marketing, you usually optimize it to an event, right? Let's say that event is installed, right? Let's say that event is first added cash to a course, right? Or course completed, right? It is always optimized to an event. How performance marketing works is whatever event or whatever the success metric you give to the machine, the ML model finds people who can do that particular event, right? And this is where effectiveness comes, but the reach tapers, right? After a point of time, you will find efficient, CPAs for your business, cost per actions for your business. But after a point of time, it will increase if you do not do brand. Because what brand is going to do is going to add more people to the lower funnel of performance marketing, right? There are multiple ways you can do performance marketing. If you have an app, you can do Facebook AAAs, UACs. If you are just starting out as a brand, do Google search. Because Google search will tell you a lot more truths about your industry and business like no other platform in the world, right? Because it tells you number of people who are actively searching for a product like yours, right? It tells you number of advertisers who are bidding on these keywords. So it gives you a competitive landscape of your advertisers. It gives you potential audience base in the future, right? So there are multiple tools, multiple ways, from, different platforms that you can use, from a self-reporting network like Google and Facebook, from a programmatic network, like, different DSPs in the world, right? But we would like to just stop here before we get into a lot of details. And this is like a curve, pre-launch to a grow to a maturity phase. What do you want to focus on? Retention comes in later, right? Growth and user acquisition comes in a pre-launch to a growth phase, right? And we would want to open it to AMAs, right? What are the specific challenges that you are facing, right? And so that we can, tailor our responses better on solving particular problems. So any questions?
I have a broad question there. Which really specifically related to the marketing, it can mix up like appetites, the video using a rough way to launch it in one area and on Siri to make creative. So it's very difficult to know whether if you are going in the right direction or not. Because the conversions might be improving, but what you know that we are improving by good enough to patterns. So what do you find that? Because also it's very specific to the product that we are standing. So there was a good sort of framework to understand whether the efforts are going in the right direction.
What are the success metrics that you track on your end?
So if we, let's say what would be the action would be completion of an application, and second would be buying the books. These are two metrics, and there's like a conversion obviously from people who are that people who are really here. So yeah, broadly that way.
Got it. So since you have started performance marketing, right, you would have seen an increase in the conversions and your success metrics, right? With increasing in cost, you would have seen increasing in cost per actions, right? Because economies at scale does not work in advertising one day. It increases, kind of with increase in scale. Has your organic increased? Organic traction? Got it. And how many geographies are you present in?
So currently we're doing it bad in there. Because like, doing that is a gap. Super.
See, there's a lot of, and I would not ask for budgets and etc. I would be assuming that you're doing a certain kind of a good amount of budgets, in terms of acquiring these users. It's always good to do geosyntheses, like geosynthetic, tests, blackout tests, where, if you want to test whether your performance marketing is yielding the right value. So cost per action is one metric, cost per incremental action is the other metric. And that is where you should start tracking these metrics. So what does that mean? Let's take two cities, right? Three cities, Delhi, Mumbai and Bangalore, right? Just black out Bangalore. Do not do performance marketing there. Okay, let's forget Bangalore. It would be an important city to you, right? Let's take Ahmedabad, right? For example, X city, right? Just black it out, right? And see how does the dynamics of organic changes. Usually in every business, 99% of the business, there's no 100% truth, right? What happens is if you're doing performance marketing for a bit of time, right? It eats your organic. You would not know, and it blends in so well, right? That you would not come to know. You will feel that it is building incremental value, but there are diminishing returns if you're not doing brand. Once you black out Ahmedabad, see the trend of organic rising. Is it constant? Is it rising? If it is constant, very good for you. You have not yet juiced out performance marketing. If it is increasing, that means it has started cannibalizing. And that is where you have to think top of the funnel and not bottom of the funnel. That your top of the funnel is getting saturated, right? So it is important to expand the top of the funnel. So your bottom of the funnel, metrics and your activities and your impact and your decisions will start yielding more value. So there are multiple ways. One is geosynthetic analysis. One is, you black out some states. You make replicas of different, users and these are more technical terms, like at an auction and a bid level where you bid for these users, you draw a CGTG, like a control group and a target group, and you find out the incremental value. But it is important to do that. Like I would suggest every quarter, do the incremental test so that you get the right bang for the buck. Anything?
Would you elaborate a little bit of the CTGs back in the area?
Okay. Are you doing retargeting also? So let's say, and one of the slides was, retargeting. Do you think retargeting is cheaper than, acquisition? Right. So, in general, like if you look at the e-commerce world, right, cost per acquisition for an average order value, kind of let's say apparel brand, right, which has a 700 average order value, cost per acquisition would be close to, for a new brand, 1,200. For an evolved brand, let's say, 500. Which brings ROAS greater than 1 for certain, evolved brands. But retargeting, interestingly, if you just look at attributed data, the cost for retargeting would be 30 rupees, right? So everybody thinks, wow, this is working well for me. But the interesting flip side to this is, if you're not doing retargeting, that person would have still converted. Did my advertising efforts, did it influence the point of purchase? And that is where incrementality study comes in. So let's say you're retargeting with a base of 100 people. 10 people do not show advertising. Do not upload it in advertising platforms. Keep it in the safe pocket, right? Rest 90 people show them advertising. And see the behavior change of 90 people to 10 people, right? Is there a behavior change? Does your advertising changes behavior, changes actions for certain people. If there's an incremental value in advertising, add all. Usually do 50-50. If you're more confident, do 90-10. And if it works, take the entire 100. So that is control group
So
and
if you
targeted.
start in
That is how it works.
Performance marketing that we don't do
So if you
any of
start
that as of now would be one group. And my target group is so it's the B2B business. And we want to reach out to leaders in Nago. Because typically it's their decision making which influences our steer. So how do we start thinking about it? Imagine absolutely we're thinking about never thinking the things so bad and bad.
See, I think so. The first step is to figure out where these people are, right? And I'm not saying from a very digital point of view, but from a very expanded horizon point of view, right? Lamborghini does not advertise because their users don't watch TV, or they don't spend a lot of time scrolling Instagram, right? So it is important to break certain biases of what is happening in the current world, how other people are thinking, and what is right for the business. So let's say these are high net worth individuals, like the CEOs of the company, right, and stuff like that. Just it is important to figure out where is their footprint currently. It might be a digital footprint, it might be a physical footprint, and these are some of the challenges that we have faced, back in our days to acquire high quality clients versus low quality users. If let's say LinkedIn is the platform, right, where and these people usually are thought leaders. Right, where they where they usually post out certain pieces of their work. It is important. The important metric to go is not just an impression to show them, but an engagement. I use sparking conversation. So there's a metric called PTAT. It's called people talking about this. Right. If the PTAT for an influencer is higher, right, how does the brand engage into the conversations? So and that is where the value comes in. Everybody throws out an impression. Right, and especially for B2B where the sales cycle are long, it is important to throw out meaningful impressions and impactful impressions. Now, impactful impressions is not just advertising; it is also engagement, right? The conversations, right? That you have with certain individuals. It might happen on a LinkedIn chat, and that is where community building and stuff kind of thing happens, right? Where people want to be a part of a community, a club, right? Where CRED has done a very good, the idea of CRED is very good in that case, building a club for, the high net worth individuals. So that is where, that is the first principles in terms of how to think about where the digital footprint is, and everything comes, from there. The entire marketing and the business plan comes from there.
Two things to think about.
Does that make sense?
To find where they are and find out what they're talking about and the other competitive edges to that.
And then make your own playbook, right? Do not use any other playbooks because that does not really work. Replication. Yeah.
It's that I didn't want is no way for search. We think of it with search, but in a country like India, YouTube search it's actually not bigger. So I think that's one. Sometimes people just this. The other thing is LinkedIn has this LinkedIn a lot of work on B2B marketing, and interestingly they found that a lot of these laws of marketing, right, that were developed for B2C were actually more to even the B2B world as well. Just fair. Nice. Yeah, just on the B2B point, actually we tried growing WhatsApp business, and so the PPM was in that business over the last 4 or 5 years. They keep all and make so many capitalist directors, scenes, and sort of started popular. They care business apps and their mobile numbers. But the thing is, we've actually seen traction on WhatsApp business API because then it quickly through a WhatsApp conversation, and then they quickly gets to a phone call and meet. But the challenge is, because WhatsApp has increased the audiences that got 6 or 7x. How do we measure that? Because you have a CPC or CPA or there's measurable outcomes to this. The challenge here, at least I believe as a founder, is it's very anecdotal. Or this is working, so let's blast it to we're doing something, you get MBA back that blast it to ways and we work. We found a community now. That's one measurable activity we have is, let's say for every last time we will actually join our community. And if we go last step over and over again. It is the, because I love your brand one. So should I look at it saying, you know what, half of the glass should be more around knowledge giving and brand rather than trying to get into some action, right? So as a B2B business, we focus more building brand rather than pushing them very. I made something seriously. I do what I'm saying, please join this community or please respond to me or take an action. Rather saying, well, you're in institute, these are the new courses that you should consider learning. We are having some resources not to check with you. Actually, we don't want them to be here it is. So this wisely give people a B2B perspective with person or that business you get. If you use that, what's your experience been then? Because it's lucky for us, but you can't put the number to it. That's the problem, right? Unlike the other, right? And obviously, when WhatsApp doesn't have great analytics or tools that are on it, so you have to do your own analytics.
I think that's a very, very beautiful question, because that is where I think the nuances of the entire analytical world and how we measure stuff, right, from a brand and a performance perspective, that gray line also comes there. So let me take a step back before answering the question, right? See, WhatsApp, because we are talking about WhatsApp as a channel, right? There's a fundamental psychological difference. I am one person. I'm at an Instagram, I have a different personality. LinkedIn, I have a different personality. WhatsApp, I have a different personality. And so on and so forth. So from the communication side, it is very important to figure out what personality. I mean, if the retargeting, communication same across all the channels, that's not the right strategy. It is very important to figure out what has to be communicated in what channel, right? That's the key difference. Because if I get a LinkedIn content on Instagram, I won't even bother. And if I get an Instagram content on LinkedIn, I would say, this is not the right, channel for me. This is not the right content for me. So it's very important. See, one person, but multiple personalities once we, go to different other channels. Now coming to the putting a number to, WhatsApp, we all look at attributions, right? We all look at, did my effort yield any action, right? And what was the last touch point where it yielded action, right? Now that's a very linear way of thinking, right? A lot of brand stuff, let's say we put an outdoor hoarding, there's no way to track it, right? But in like every sports match, like if you play basketball or if you play, football, there's an assist. Ronaldo can only be a Ronaldo if someone passes Ronaldo the ball, for the goal. And that pass has to be really good. It cannot be someone, who does not know how to play football, right? So that is where these branding channel comes in. And is it an app? Do you have an app?
No, it's not. Like, it's actually more of a SaaS platform.
It's a SaaS platform. So you would have a CRM system, correct?
Actually, an NMS and a content.
Yeah. So the good thing about the advertising world is we were in broadcasting era, right? Back in 1990s. We went to the programmatic era in 2000s. Now we are at a predictive era, right? Where all the algorithms sophistication is, to a point where we can predict what will happen next. So if you look at WhatsApp as a channel, right? Just look at assisted attributions, and that is something analytical there that you'll have to set in your, in your CRM, that if the user has transacted on my platform via Facebook, what was the second last touch point? What was the third last touch point? And what was the first touch point? If in your data of 100 people, you see maximum conversion happen with an assist of a particular channel, right? That is where you see the win of that platform, right? That it is not the converting channel for me, but it leads me to the path, right? It leads me to a certain goal, right? And if that channel was not there, this conversion would never happen. Now see, this is a more analytical answer. This is a more infrastructure answer. The second answer is just be relevant in terms of creatives in those channels, right? which is a first principles approach, right? And let's say if you're not able to build, those platforms or those analytical systems or infrastructure at this moment, just be relevant. Get constant feedbacks. See, the biggest problem that, we all face, and I had been a founder back in my days, right, that we all face is we do not have the right feedback loops, right? We go with our gut, right? We take a smaller sample size of people and then we just execute it, right? We solve it for tomorrow, day after, right? Having the right feedback loop is very important of what's working, what's not working, and that comes from the consumers who are disgruntled, who have been happier, right? Not the marketing head, right? There has to be a right feedback loop of the people who have experienced the communication of your brand. So these are the two answers that I wanted to. One is the more analytical answer where you can track it effectively, and one is setting the right mind structures in terms of feedback loops.
Which going makes a lot of sense for us for 15 years as a brand. Like, I think actually I just stretch your question, right? And then
To think, how do you better make back a brand at Khalid, right? Just even beyond WhatsApp, because I think you that I like the heard that is part of the question. So then is, it's very hard to do like $1 in sales out, right? So going back to this Aston Martin car example, right? All of it didn't spend when this gentleman was a kid, and the sales happened when he retired. So what measure which out of, and many people propose different measures to make some marketing growth, etc. But I think the one which I use is called mental market share. So just as there is sales market share, mental market share is just relative to all your competing brands. How strong are you on owning category entry points in the minds of the user, right? So both the quantity of category entry points you own and the degree of strength that you own them, right? And sort of an equivalent measure to sales. So mental market share is one which, and that that has to be a leading indicator of actual sales. But you can it has is more that when you actually put out a certain message which links your brand to a certain CP, you see that number moves first before sales. So that's one place to give yourself confidence that yes, the messaging I'm putting out there is likely to win these linkages and given my brand with the category
every point that we got in just
Yeah. Okay, so maybe we can talk about one at Zomato. Yeah, okay. So the interesting one we saw at Zomato was, when it rained, people felt like pakoras, right? So how do you when it rains, how do you remind people that they can just order them from Zomato? So rain becomes talking about rain becomes an entry point. So and it's I mean, don't go by the jargon, right? It's what, where, how, with whom, what are all the linkages or triggers, to people thinking music your brand.
right. So this is where my opportunity comes. I could validate top of our ideas that we are putting in. We are a behavior insight company who will set a company is reducing the CAC for their customer. So what role do you think automation plays here? Because when you acquire the customer, you have to nudge them, whether we do a push notification, to a red campaign, like maybe to a WhatsApp campaign. So what over do you think because of this generative AI, right, where you like send you automate different random messaging campaign over the internet. So what do you think? Is there any tool which we can use, or is there a scope for marketing or market companies which people can leverage to reduce the CAC on any result? We're going to help the person.
Good question. See, I think a lot of MarTech companies are limited in terms of the inputs, and from a behavioral, tech company, behavioral science tech company, I think so inputs matter to you a lot. List of variables that you can analyze, make a single customer view, and what the output has to be, because matters a lot. See, typically in terms of marketing automation, just a series of email drip campaigns, performance drip campaigns do not work. Right? Eventually you get blocked, or the users or the consumers become, banner blind or notification blind, and that's a mistake a lot of companies do, right? From a behavioral science point of view, I think so there is a very huge scope in terms of, and there's a very big headroom in terms of what you can do as a platform, considering if you have the right inputs, right? where the MarTech, platforms fail is it does not talk to ad tech platforms, right? And they purely rely on CRM data, purely rely. Like the funnel starts from once the person has entered the journey, right? But what about the psychographical behaviors, right? What about the content that they see on on different platforms? So that data does not, for an edtech company, right? You would not capture that data. Users will not give you that data for you to build a relevant automation engine. It has to be ingested in some form of the other by some DMP, right? Data management platforms, or from some other ad tech companies, which tell you the right signals of timing of the day, the content that has to go out, the journey that the user is in, right? Of what exactly has to be communicated to that user that will be valued by the user. See, because if you're talking English, I'm talking Spanish, you would not understand.
So
It's the same logic.
You spoke earlier about brand marketing, right? So in that marketing, the only thing that comes to my mind is running like really broad Facebook ads, like traffic campaign, and like I'll think of anything else that I can do with a tiny budget. So what would you suggest? Something that we do, or how is that what you mean when you say brand marketing, like running like traffic ads to your website or something like that? Or is that performance marketing?
See, traffic ads, so that's the thin line between brand and performance, right? It really matters about the content that you're putting out. Even if you're doing, let's say if an advertiser B has 100 rupees and you're spending 10 rupees, obviously you cannot go full out on, brand and building performance, right? Just make sure the performance marketing that you're doing, the research on creatives and the creatives that you're putting out, right, is going to get remembered. Emotional priming is very important than rational explanation, right? No matter how many rational conversations you might have with a person, right, it might add value, but what will be remembered will be a more emotional message. So yes, budget from a 0 to 1 is a challenge, that is acknowledged. But from that 0 to 1 budget, right, just make sure that whatever content that you're putting out has an emotional priming layer into it. If it is just 50% off, this course 20 rupees off, that course 90% off, it won't work. It never works. Even if the user enters the funnel, they would not exit the funnel in terms of course completion, right? It has to be a deeper ground rooted kind of a message that you will have to communicate to the users.
But what channels of brand marketing would you recommend for someone?
Going to add value and what is going to get remembered? I'd start with YouTube. So brand marketing video is by far the most effective way of building these category entry point linkages with your brand and users' minds. So hence YouTube is the most effective digital video channel where you can play with small budgets and something. And I'll maybe just build on what Apoorva said, right? I think just to maybe give an example of what a performance marketing versus a brand marketing creative would look like. So I'm making this up. So let's say you're a company with when people transition from being an individual contributor to a manager, right? Like that's a big transition, and you have to learn how to lead and manage people. And maybe that's where, let's say, an tech company has a force that's relevant for these people. A performance marketing ad would just be saying, hey, we have this manager 101 course, 20% off for the next 1 month, right? Versus an ad that actually builds a CP which has, let's say, maybe perhaps an emotional story that catches people when they're making this transition in their career, right? And links your branding to that transition. So every time and again every time someone is sort of making that transition, right, your brand is the one they sort of recall.
So what testimonial ads and stuff we kind of brand
brands they recall and come use you. So anything that creates that leakage between a brand and the category point is fair game. And that's where the art part of it comes.
And I have a question
so
on
many different ways to
back to
bootstrap it with us a few minutes back. And as an technical, when I'm looking in this place, where did we have to very keys equals to thing? Or perspectives and Greek could maybe to be for different set of courses. Why an addition brand where we have different things around the new way, it's different still. One of the major issues that I find when I work in our marketing idea is that we do a lot of different campaigns. You at least performance campaign before we do is WhatsApp messaging, all those stuff we do. The only thing is that the feedback point is very important for us because every student is not, I would not say that how was Zomato or a Sticky was working, but at the average you want to be somewhere. Here there is a student, he might be looking for a placement or a job opportunity, he might be looking for some other aspect that will entice him to actually put in the lead. So how to measure that feedback from these set of activities that you use, like you were talking about, feedback will be very important because you don't have that infrastructure to measure all those set of things, but then the creative has to be good, the messaging has to be good. So how to do that? Because that is where I am stuck in my organization. We have a lot of data, deals, all those type of things, but we really don't know the important data.
Yeah.
So I guess could pull up two places where the data come from, right? One is like just like quantitative data from one of the systems. I think I've seen many folks just really underestimate the value of quantitative data, right? And just quantitative, user research. I was also what I would do is look, you probably don't want to spend on like a marketing agency, right? An etc. What have you, right? They're not the best use of your money. What I found is actually hiring one person, right, actually from one of these agencies and having them who are actually engaged, do consumer research, whether it's, testing, what pages work, or whether it's testing like product feature ideas or just, understanding the user better. I found like that's a really good investment, right? In that one person and
recently also did
the insight that it's like multiple functions in your
yes,
org.
absolutely. With the other student, absolutely.
This one person you hire, right, should be
and they pay the fee like 20 days of the month.
meeting people.
But once the campaign is done, the feedback mechanism is, what are the questions? How to do that?
So I think if it's a if it's a performance campaign, you have your performance metrics that you could measure. But if that campaign again, right, you have to the way to calculate mental market share is you have to have a regular survey out there, right? It's like a brand track that's out there. And there are many ways to now do it, like online, and again, right, like I just one research person, they can figure out who are all my members who can end up do this for you.
Good birthday. So what are you there? Yeah, kind of sort of any kind of marketing. It's probably one from simply plastic source of the type of what leave cardboard in it websites. And they type me as it is my data generated by us, researched by us, and predicted on top of that. It's not master data, single source of trusted data. It is single source but new of my company. So I would think of the that with all the soon we can have a platform where with linear data of transactions when I can say that these are digital transaction theories that some need purchase need kind of authority that secure dollar and provide all the private sectors modern source of data. Local customer, then the segmentation would be who's can segment it, and then can identify a proper area to attack. For brand new for market, the digital marketing and all. But is no opinion about that. How over that still we are running insiders. No such we got away like they are only from the governments government authority haven't had to see. The attack top view is only of the and then but now immediate patient pilot institutes some more than language instruments. So locally it's so to switch on. So the question to the data you're referring to is like transaction data of what Indian consumers where they're spending. No, I know like levelize that we were our those customers who's created maximally and apparently at any Excel ways or do that or then so that segmentation I won
but it is cluster. Anyway, I can't create to actual global linear data. I can place within my IP file from Zomato. I think it had data, not clouds, concentrations and all. So how I can estimate the financial potential of Indian people so that I can reach to correct person, work correct kind of purpose actually. I'm glad got it.
So I think I just touch, I mean, different tabs. And one is just how do you estimate like the total addressable market, right, for a particular product. And I think there, there is sort of demographic data available, right? So NCCES, which is the socioeconomic class data, sort of is a good, marker for, affluence, right? And I think, that data is, available out there. So that's one, type of data that can be used. Specifically, one good data source I use, which is a paid data source of Kantar, has something called IQ. So that's a survey they do on internet users every year. And that has, a lot of rich data on, different people by age group, gender, affluence, city class, etc., and what they're doing online, what they're sort of, expecting on online. So again, that's paid data. I was lucky the companies I worked with, had access to it. That's how I got access. But that's a good, data source. And if it's important enough, you would even actually worth, investing if that survey happens once a year. I guess the other part of it is, how do you reach, certain right users? I think so. Google and Facebook have a decent job of, big proxies, right? So if you're looking for, let's say, people who spend above, a certain amount, right? Like there are various proxy targetings, it targets iOS users or high-end, Android, device users, right? Like this and beta, the ad platforms have, or even proxies, right? Let's say, ad platforms probably have a segment of mutuals, people who buy mutual funds, right? Which is again, a certain premium segment. So, as far as targeting those and targeting certain, whether it's affluent segments or other segments, Google, Facebook have kind of, decent proxies. And as far as tab goes, some data that's public, like, other data like IQ.
Question.
I think we bought question getting this.
Can I ask a question?
Not
like, if we don't revenue, and what he is asking for is not focused addressable market, but total addressable market. So, is there assumption data available which say how many people bought pizza out yesterday? Which today he knows how many more. So we know pizza eaten he called the hunters. Now we know pizza that from there he extrapolates for the deal that he fought it, and there in the whole world, how many people bought a pizza that yesterday? There is such data. But for 30 pizza.
So it's like wishing for a unicorn. That at a user level, so we are talking about a user level data. At a user level, every transaction I might have transacted 55 times in the last 30 days. Details about my transactions, about each and every time I transacted, nobody has that. Not even Google, not even Facebook, because there are multiple, ecosystems, multiple things happening, around, every person's life, and they are transacting in multiple other platforms. But in so not working in Google and Facebook, and, just wanting to analyze that data is not available. In terms of aggregates, that X amount of people did a purchase last month, but, or were in the food tech industry, or were in the e-commerce sector, they were a shopper. Those kinds of, signals you can get from, just general, advertising platforms of Google and Facebook. But at a user level, each and every transaction for all users, right? Like say 650 million is our digital population. That is not available anywhere.
You want to concentrate on the cruise on pen signal that I want to wonder that the city, how many times you find both from something. So where you got clustered, we were at the bottom, and from where we are purchasing all the two banking transactions, if it is digital purchase. So these banking authorities centrally are the all
Not entirely.
don't have that transaction access. And so being able leads to that master or transactional data to analyze the potential customers who are actually buying from very highly and costly items or equipment. So I can predict that these valuable items or if I want to market or master these, they are the potential clusters to customer. So it's absolutely don't say it.
Yeah.
So how?
Yeah.
So that was a full back. And I think the suggestions and it feels like think of NPCI because effectively, if there is one body where all payments are getting aggregated,
And it could be how NPC is not allowed to capture it. It's actually COS. And there's a privacy question.
It's a privacy question. Absolutely.
but effectively then only one body.
Designer, they can do it. But yeah.
And the other ones, what the information workflow was it? Right?
Yeah.
And
No, get yourself a job in NPC.
And then we have to also realize, see, the most important asset for any brand, any company out there are the people, right? Are the customers that it has, right? Nobody, and data exchange, like for example, bigger brands would not really give out data information, right? Products, fintech platforms, which have digital wallets, UPI, have limited set of data in terms of transactions, but that is also not 200%. So till today, there is no platform where we can go and, get that data. I hope there is a platform, sometime in the future, but till today, there is no platform like that.
He says to phone there are platforms have capture the actual wrapping behavior data, open results. They don't capture the BIA data. And then like my previous I'm very smart. We capture this kind of data. No human eyes will want to but we used to share those the data with the let's say insurance companies, when we come with the financing companies. So we have these kind of data in there, which we can share. But even that is very important. We go this want individual detail. We want to touch each broadness of intelligence. We think this
Without individual details, you can't agree. So if you read the RAS as a new data privacy skill that posted for comments, it seems to suggest that equals permission-free capturing this data. There are a lot of requires in it. So it's not going to need to do that. Unless you can pretend.
So Folkway, which has nearly 50% UPI share, has sort of, open source some of their data sets, obviously maybe not at that level of activity, so not at that corporate level of activities, but it's a fun data set too.
now one data is transferring to special data with location stack.
Yeah, correct. Needs to get a back.
What we can take that much way.
Technique. Well, that must be. I've busted.
Any other question? Yeah.
The Sumit that it was.
Or on the Sulux. Look, there is something which is called the moment marketing.
Those.
It's 50 bird. We had Tom and Zendaya companies doing the assets and the world is nothing about that, right? So moment marketing are mostly used for performance marketing or brand marketing or both.
80-20. That's yeah. Yeah.
Faster.
Yeah.
How do you sort of, use that moment, right? Are you using to build like memory linkages, replanets, and you're using it to like, we could say.
Aman would be a good example of it. Moment marketing.
Yeah. Why not?
Capture the moment.
Moment marketing. That's something, yes.
Aman is it. And probably the best example. Aman is perhaps the best.
Aman is.
But when you have to do it so often, when you're grafting, you have to do it again, and then the people see you being that.
We use it mostly for brands and not for performance. But for GeoCinema, for example, or Hotstar, for example, when they did for Game of Thrones, all of those were essentially performance marketing largely. Because the brand then got associated with the content of it. GeoCinema, which is what they're doing with IPL right now, is brand as well as performance. Because otherwise,
I mean, I would that folks, us in the room today, would otherwise have had the GeoCinema app on their phones before IPO season kicked in. Right, so we downloaded that app only for watching season, and then once IPO itself probably delete that. And that's what we have. We sold a couple of other applications as well. So that's interesting one, which is like, I want the working bookies. If people really will spend enough on it, and then they will understand the ROI.
The other. So I think that the only problem with performance marketing is there's a machine and a machine learning and a learning phase to performance marketing campaigns. So let's say if the moment is just for one day, right, then it becomes a little difficult for the machines to optimize and learn. But let's say if the moment is IPL, very well, it's a performance marketing campaign.
Keith, thank you so much. It was great.